These are all things that can contribute to a very complex little t trauma. And it's so easy to dismiss because it doesn't look like something that people would recognize as a true trauma. And it's easy to dismiss, ignore, deny, and just get angry at yourself about. And so these are the things that often trigger us into things like procrastination or addiction. And it's so, those are the symptoms. And it really benefits us to go back and look at the cause. But having just this emotional awareness is the thing that is going to kind of change the trajectory of the way people think. Honoring and acknowledging the fact that there is a part of you that was hurt and a part of you that needs love and compassion really is kind of the answer to everything. It's not about getting rid of those things. It's about learning to lean into them and process them so that they can actually be ejected from our bodies.
Hello and welcome to Truehope Cast, the podcast where we explore the many psychological and physiological dimensions of mental health. In a world that is both beautiful and unpredictable, this show is your go-to for motivation, inspiration, practical knowledge, and real-time solutions. Brought to you by Truehope Canada, a mind and body-based supplement company dedicated to supporting brain and body wellness through non-invasive nutritional approaches. To learn more, please visit truehopecanada.com. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Amy Vincze to the podcast. Now, Amy is a seasoned professional with over 20 years of experience in the health and wellness space. She's a certified massage therapist, nutritional therapist, colon hydrotherapist, Reiki Master, and tapping coach. And for the past 16 years, she's focused on the transformative power of tapping, an approach she has used not only with clients, but also in her own healing journey from chronic pain and illness. Amy is the founder of the Soar with Tapping app, a platform designed to make this powerful healing modality accessible to everybody. She also believes tapping is one of the most effective tools available for emotional and physical transformation. Today's episode is titled From Overwhelmed to Empowered, the Healing Power of Tapping. We'll explore how this simple yet profound technique can help you break free from stress, anxiety, and emotional roadblocks and move forward towards greater clarity, balance, and well-being. Enjoy the show. Okay, Amy, hi, welcome to Truehope Cast. How are you? What's going well?
I'm great, Simon. Thank you so much for having me. The sun is shining and birds are singing outside, so we're in a good place.
Yeah, it's the springtime. It's super positive. It makes when you can wake up and the sun's there, it's ready to go. Like, how much easier is it to just like get up and get excited about the day? Like, it's pretty special.
It does bring a different energy, that's for sure.
Yeah, it certainly does. Well, we're going to be discussing From Overwhelmed to Empowered, the healing power of tapping. That's our topic for today. But before we jump into that topic, would you mind just sharing a little bit more about who you are and what it is that you do?
Yes. Let's see. I am a wife and a mother of a 12-year-old daughter. I live in California. And I have been an EFT tapping coach for 16 years. I had probably what I would call limited success with it over the years until I reached kind of a crisis point in my life, maybe 6 years ago. And I started tapping on what I believe to be the root cause of some of my issues. And that was when everything changed, because I suddenly realized the full potential of this tool, and it became my passion and my mission to share it with others so that they had it at their disposal.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. I think just as like a basic question off the top, like, what does EFT stand for, and what's tapping? I think a lot of people have probably heard of it, but like maybe you can describe to us your definition from your experience.
Absolutely. I'd love to. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. It has been shortened down to just saying tapping, and most people are just familiar with calling it that these days. But what it is it's really a triple threat. because there is the energetic therapy that is involved with it. It's very similar to acupuncture in that it utilizes the 14 energy meridians found in Chinese medicine. But instead of using the needles, you are using the percussion of tapping on your acupressure points. So there's that energetic aspect. There's also a cognitive aspect, similar to talk therapy, where you are talking about whatever it is you want to release while you are tapping on your energy meridians. And then there's the somatic aspect, because while you're tapping on your body, you cannot help but gather in your energy from worrying about the past and gather in your energy from worrying about the future. And tapping on your body will bring your energy into the present moment and help you feel more peaceful and calm, no matter what.
Very cool.
Yeah. So what though is happening on a scientific level is that whenever we get in, I'll call it an agitated state, whether it's an anxious state or a depressed state or something along those lines, that stress center in our brain has been triggered somehow. We've had a fear being triggered or a past memory being triggered. And our that part of our brain is designed at all costs to keep us safe.
Mm-hmm.
So it releases, floods our body with cortisol and puts us in a state of anxiety. So what tapping does is that it starts to de-escalate those messages that the amygdala is getting. And it will reduce cortisol in our bodies by 43% faster than it would if you didn't do anything else. It will lower your heart rate, it will lower blood pressure, and it will help you feel more peaceful and calm, even without saying anything. And that all can happen within a short period of time, like 15 minutes.
Wow.
But then you add in the fact that you're talking about whatever it is that is causing you stress, and it starts to reprogram your neural pathways to associate a feeling of safety and calm with whatever it is you're talking about. So it is a very powerful and very fast and effective way of neutralizing things that would normally cause like an emotional disruption.
So if I had no idea about tapping and frequency and energy and meridians and all these things, I was just thinking about how I might have perceived people like tapping in a response to agitation or anxiety.
Mhm.
Like when somebody is like, tapping their foot relentlessly, which I cannot stand. Like when they're sitting at the table or they're like in a lecture or something and they're fidgety and their body is moving. And even
Mhm.
people who are like, tapping their fingers all the time and like doing this. What's the connection between, because obviously that's coming from the brain somewhere, probably on a subconscious level. Is there a connection? Is it like a method in which the brain is trying to reduce the stress or anxiety in that moment for that person, kind of the same way in which tapping, you're describing how it's being used?
Well, I think what you're asking is really referring to kind of just nervous energy in somebody. If they've got like excess energy and they don't know what to do with
Mm,
it, they'll tap their foot or tap something along those lines. But with EFT tapping, where you tap has to be very specific. And that's the
okay.
only area of tapping that I tell people it really benefits you to be a bit of a perfectionist.
Okay.
Because if you're not tapping on the exact right spot, then it won't be nearly as effective as tapping anywhere else. So, for
Gotcha.
example, like the first spot is right at the beginning of our eyebrow point, and if you're tapping up where somewhere in the middle of your forehead, doesn't have the same effect. So, where you're tapping is very specific, and because those are the points where our energy meridians kind of rise to the surface of our bodies, and you can actually have an impact on them by tapping on those spots. A random spot on your shoulder or tapping your foot would not have the same effect as EFT tapping.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially when you know a little bit about meridians and Chinese medicine,
Mhm.
and acupuncture and even acupressure and things like that. It's very you have to be trained, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to know what's
Yes.
connected. And
Yeah.
I'm sure the right pressure is necessary in a lot of these things as well. So it's not like
Mhm.
something you can just do without any sort of training or an app or guidance, etc. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, there are some things that are more helpful than others. But if you're tapping on the right spots and you're just talking about what it is you want to release, then it really is quite effective, more effective than you might think. I mean, it looks rather silly, and I think that's one of the things that most people struggle with. They have to tap on their body in order to experience some kind of relief. But the great thing is you won't hurt yourself by doing any of this or by doing it in a wrong way. You just might not achieve the same results.
Yeah, I even think there's something to things that are maybe a little bit silly, that are like shaking things up for us, doing things that are out of our norm, changing our neural pathways, like shaking things out and like just dancing around and being a kid.
Yes.
You clearly step out of a stressful state, which is a lot of people are just hardwired that way these days, and we're trying to break that a bit, I guess.
Yes, I agree.
Cool.
Yeah, we aren't meant to be under this amount of stress by any means. We get triggered 50, 100 times a day, and it's not supposed to happen that often, that's for sure.
That's right. I'd love to learn a little bit more about what led you into tapping, because I know you've got a pretty diverse background when it comes to like healing modalities. So yeah, like what led you into tapping, and was there like a personal breakthrough
Mhm.
that made you specifically like really believe in this transformative power? It's not like I'm guessing it's not like you started reading a tapping book and then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm all in. It's usually something big happens
Yeah.
with the understanding of the practice as well.
Yes, definitely. I can say with all honesty that I've always been a seeker, and so I was always looking for something to make myself or make other people feel better. That was just something that was kind of hardwired in me. But I did, have a breast cancer diagnosis at the age of 31, and so there was a big part of me that asked the question, like, "Why me?" And I don't mean that in a shaking my fist at God kind of way, like, "Why me?"
As a
I was
seeker, though, you're asking it as a seeker.
I was really curious. I really wanted to find the answer. What was it about me physically or emotionally or spiritually that kind of invited this experience in? Because on a biological level, I'm the exact same as this other person over here that does not have that same diagnosis. So why me? And I was at a Tony Robbins event and met somebody there that introduced me to tapping. And we had one session, and for whatever reason, I was immediately hooked. It was very shortly after that that I sought out my own coach and then got certified on my own because I just recognized the potential in this tool at some level. Like I said, I had limited success with it over the years, and I came to a crisis point in my life, though, about 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, where, just everything was going wrong in my life. I was struggling professionally, I was struggling in my marriage, I was struggling as a parent, I was just struggling with who I was across the board. And I started tapping for maybe 30 minutes a day for probably 2 weeks while walking on my treadmill in the morning. And I experienced such a profound change in just that short of a period of time because I started focusing my tapping on what I imagined the root cause of my problems were. So I had been focusing on tapping on the symptoms, whether it was, some addiction that I was struggling with. I struggled with addictions to food, and sugar specifically, or whether I was struggling with procrastination. Had been tapping on those particular symptoms. But when I asked myself, what's underneath that? Like, what am I actually afraid of? And why am I afraid of those things? And I started focusing on that. Then my world expanded in ways I couldn't have even imagined. So it was at that point that I became truly passionate, and this became my mission to bring tapping to the world.
Wow. Okay. Well, I've got a bunch of questions. I'd love
Yes.
to know how you describe, and I'm sure you describe this to clients all the time, because I think it's important not only to obviously teach the practical, but to teach the reasons behind why you're doing and why it works. You know, I think that reinforces the practice tenfold.
Yeah.
So you were talking about 30 minutes a day for a couple of weeks on your treadmill, and you're tapping in a specific area, but not only you're not just tapping, you're not just doing that, but you're also focusing on the root cause that you believe to be of your symptoms, rather than the symptoms themselves, because that's quite
Yes.
interesting, because as you know, in allopathic conventional medicine, it's all about the symptoms. It's never about like the root cause, you know. So
Right.
I think that's quite an interesting practice. So what do you think the benefits that you did experience from doing that practice for a couple of weeks? What do you think the benefits of focusing on the root cause rather than the symptoms? What was the difference there, do you think?
I think that let's just look at it this way. So if I was driving down the freeway and I wanted to get from here to LA in a certain period of time, there's a million cars on the road and I can't make my way there.
Mm.
I was trying to manage things like procrastination by weaving into the car in and out of the cars and going off the freeway and getting back on maybe at certain points and trying to find a way around this route, this distance between me and where I wanted to be. I was just trying to manage it, not knowing that I actually could take the cars out one by one, take the cars out of my way so that eventually I'd have a clear path to get between here and where I want to go. That's what it means to get rid of the root cause.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk about the root cause, I'm almost always referring to some type of trauma, whether it's a big T trauma or a little T trauma, and I can explain the difference between those two. But they will almost always just be in the pathway from where you are and where you want to be, and removing those things. You remove those things by removing your emotional attachment to them by doing the tapping. So, for example, if I had an assault, some kind of a big assault, whether sexual or physical in any other way, in my past, I would consider that a big T trauma.
Mm-hmm.
It was usually something like that is a one-off event where it only happened once in your life. And applying tapping to that, there's a very specific way to do it, because in an event like that, there are multiple points along the timeline of that event where I would experience regret for not making a different choice,
Mm-hmm.
guilt for not doing something differently, or shame in some way, shape, or form. And all of those things need to be neutralized.
Right.
Otherwise, it creates a fear, a massive fear that you're not safe in some way, shape, or form. You're not good enough in some way, shape, or form, or there's something wrong with you. And with that fear comes a limiting belief, like I'm not good enough. I'm never going to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
See, just something along those lines. So I can work on the feeling that I'm not good enough, but if the source of the problem, the trauma, is still emotionally charged for me, then I will continue to try and chip away something that I'm never ever going to get to the source of it. It's like trying to stop a leak 2 miles down the river. You know, it's going back to that root cause that is always, it's the thing that is going to stop the leak, and it's going to stop the problem from being a problem in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, those big types of traumas that a lot of people certainly experience. Obviously, trauma is different for everybody. I guess the worst thing that's happened to you is the worst thing that's happened to you, right? Like it's going to be different
Yes.
for different people.
Yes.
And yeah, I think there's a really large misunderstanding of like stress response nervous system dysregulation, and that energy, that frequency that comes within that type of an incident, and it has to go somewhere.
Yes.
And if it's not worked through, it's not processed, it's not digested and eliminated, then it stays within the body. And if you are working within those limiting beliefs constantly, and you are firing and wiring those thoughts let's just say 1,000 times a day,
yes,
for years, for decades,
yes,
it ends up becoming your personality. It's your everyday. You are that those thoughts that originally come from a situation that turns into one thought, that turns into 20, that turns into 20 thoughts that you just go over and over again. And it's funny, but it's not funny at all, but it's wild that because we can't see these things happening in somebody's psychology, that we kind of think that they're not a big deal or they don't exist. It's just in your head. And it's really a massive injustice to so many people who do suffer with so many different things, where it could be minor for somebody, it could be major for other people. And I think it's just great that we're able to have conversations like this, to have more and more people understand that trauma is a very serious thing. Our nervous system is this beautiful, amazing, ancient biochemical system that, with any system that's dysregulated, it will end up dysfunctioning and not working in your favor. And especially in a survival situation, in a state where you need your brain or your body to act in your best interest in a short period of time. We obviously most people don't live in a world where that is a beneficial state to be in all of the time.
Right.
But when we do have practices like tapping, meditation, even just standing and being in nature and shutting out all the noise and all the light, your brain and your body have got the ability to regulate a little bit easier, rather than they don't have all these external distractions surrounding it, kind of reaffirming the limiting beliefs and all the, let's just call, stresses that come with that initial trauma. And it's wild that we're still in our infancy when it comes to understanding these things, when I feel like if we were 20,000 years ago in small communities, we would have, I'm going to call them like religious practices, whatever that might be for wherever you would have been in the world, that would help people get through those traumas. Because obviously people would have lost kids, people would have lost parents, people would have lost limbs. Bad things would have happened 20,000 years ago. But I feel like there would have been practices based around energy, based around empathy and kindness and love and joy and grace, which carry a very different frequency to hate and regret and all these other things. And it's, I feel like we are just maybe relearning this kind of like spiritual element of what healing might be. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. I actually think we're on the cusp of another breakthrough in understanding who we are, because we are spiritual and emotional and intellectual and physical beings. And we have largely, there's a big spiritual movement, there's a big physical movement and an intellectual movement. Everybody has kind of valued those things very highly. And now we're starting to value more highly the emotional side of who we are. And so it's getting a lot more attention lately, which is really exciting for anybody working in the field, because I think that, and I want to go back to talking about the different definitions of trauma, because I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make in looking at their life and their own behavior, is they assume that they haven't had any trauma. But if it doesn't look like a big T trauma, if it doesn't look like some huge event, massive abuse or something along those lines, they can easily say, well, I don't, what do I have to complain about, sort of thing. But there is a whole nother category called little T trauma that doesn't look like anything else. It could be as simple as having an angry parent in the household that caused you to be scared going home every single day, and made you think that everything had to be perfect in order to avoid the wrath of that anger, even if there was no physical abuse involved. If that happens, over a significant length of time, can be far more severe and complex than a big T trauma. Same thing could happen if a child was ignored because parents are working a number of jobs, or if they just didn't have the emotional capacity to dedicate to their kids. It can invoke the same type of feeling for the child. Same if you had like an overly critical parent. These are all things that can contribute to a very complex little T trauma. And it's so easy to dismiss because it doesn't look like something that people would recognize as a true trauma. And it's easy to dismiss, ignore, deny, and just get angry at yourself about. And so these are the things that often trigger us into things like procrastination or addiction. And it's so, those are the symptoms. And it really benefits us to go back and look at the cause. But having just this emotional awareness is the thing that is going to kind of change the trajectory of the way people think. Honoring and acknowledging the fact that there is a part of you that was hurt and a part of you that needs love and compassion really is kind of the answer to everything. It's not about getting rid of those things. It's about learning to lean into them and process them so that they can actually be ejected from our bodies.
Yeah, and what's really unfortunate is that a lot of these little T traumas that you're talking about happen to kids when they're developing, when their brains are developing and nervous systems are developing, and a lot of these little T's are happening kind of behind closed doors with people who are supposed to be their primary caregivers to take care of them. And then their physiology and psychology grows up in an environment where their protectors are associated with fear and anger and rage. It's like if you grow up in a world like that, like everything else outside of that is going to be, you're going to be scared.
And as kids, we are naturally narcissistic. In that little kid brain of ours, we think that everything in the world happens because of us. And so we don't have all of the information. We don't have the ability to process what's happening around us with a critical eye. You know, we just look at it as our fault. I need to adapt somehow. And the adapt part is usually the thing that is becomes a problem later on. And our primitive brain doesn't recognize that same threat isn't present anymore.
Yeah.
It just reverts back to that childhood way of thinking about it.
Yeah, I really love the like you see the images of like deer when they feel a threat.
Yeah.
Whether it's from a car high or something, and there's videos of them where they literally like they'll freeze and then they literally shake out of themselves and then they carry on doing their thing, like that nervous system processing. It's very, very cool. And it's, you know, I wish that sometimes I was, you know, just had the lifestyle of a deer, you know.
Right.
Just shake it off, you know. That's right. And yeah, obviously many people are struggling with feelings of overwhelm on a daily basis, especially today. What are some signs that tapping could especially be helpful for somebody kind of caught in that cycle where it's, you know, it's a daily thing for them, a daily struggle?
When people are generally in a state of overwhelm and or anxiety, what tends to happen is that all of our energy goes up into our head and we get into this state of swirling thoughts where they don't have the ability to land anywhere. There's just constant worries about the past or the present. Overwhelm tends to be underneath it tends to be feelings of like worrying that people are going to judge and criticize me if I don't get these things done, if I don't do them perfectly, that sort of thing. So in a moment, like if you don't have the time or the energy to address like what's underneath, what the root cause is, and you just need a Band-Aid to put over this gushing wound to get you through the day, tapping can actually help get you grounded in your body. It can bring your energy back down into your body. And that is into the present moment. And that is where you are the most effective and the most efficient version of yourself.
Agreed. Yeah.
So even if you're not addressing all of these fears and traumas underneath it, you can still lower your cortisol. You can still bring your heart rate down and bring yourself back to a place where you can function more easily in the moment.
Yeah, that stepping into the present moment is, it's a big theme of a lot of very productive therapy, such as like meditation. And I feel a lot of people in the space of mental health who, are fearful of the past and experience depression, or fearful of the future, experiencing anxiety. Stepping into that present moment and just being aware of your brain, your body, your surroundings, and all, and the things that are wonderful in your life. It's giving your nervous system a rest from this, like this on and off stress, rest state. And if you can find yourself, I spoke to thousands of people about like when they have made the most like transformative changes in their lives for the better. It's when they're able to step in the present moment for longer periods of time. So whether they start with a 10-minute walk where they're actually like walking and saying the things that they see, so they're staying in the moment and not letting their mind drift, and then stepping into a meditation for 20 minutes or a yoga practice, or then into using like tapping, for example. If you can increase that window of staying in the present moment, you will not only will you refuel your brain and body and recharge yourself and provide yourself energy, you are going to reduce biomarkers of stress. You are going to reduce biomarkers of anxiety and depression, and all these things. So that present moment piece, when you mentioned that really stood out for me.
I can easily say that was one of the most transformational things for me, is being able to be in the present moment. And for decades before that, I was unable to do something like meditation because my brain was going constantly worrying. I couldn't stop the thoughts. I couldn't even minimize them. I was always worried so much. So that's why I think tapping is also a great sister tool to a lot of these other practices like meditation, because if you used tapping to slow down those thoughts, get them out of your body, talk about them while you're tapping and lowering that cortisol in your system, then you put yourself in a much better position to reap the benefits of meditation, or even breath work or something like that, or walk in nature. I mean, I can walk in nature and have my mind go berserk about all of the things that are back at my desk waiting for me, right?
Sure.
So it's a great sister tool for a lot of those things too, and can really enhance your experience with those things.
Yeah, and for those people who do really struggle to meditate, or to just like sit and just be in the present moment, like you were just kind of describing of yourself there, and I've experienced it as well. I think it's good to just recognize that that's the program that's just running in the system at the moment, and you're able to reprogram, upload new software. It might take some time. If you can go from a 1-minute meditation to a 5-minute to a 10-minute, you are reprogramming the system to be able to sit more in the present moment. And it takes time. We live in a very frantic, stressful world, and we have to actively work to put these practices into our lives to benefit our psychological and our physiological health. Like, it just has to happen these days, unless you are lucky to live out into the mountains and you're self-sufficient there and you're probably just living in absolute bliss. But that's not the majority of people. So we have to work at it. Like, not only do we have to like supplement our bodies because our soil and our food is so nutrient poor,
Absolutely.
but like our souls are nutrient poor, and we need to get back to it. So
it's like building a muscle, right? I mean, we haven't exercised the emotional part of us for many, many hundreds of years. It has, I mean, emotions have been made wrong in so many ways across time, and engaging with them feels like you're going to get judged and criticized. But the more we kind of engage with that muscle and kind of lean into our emotions and allow ourselves to actually feel them, we are creating those different neural pathways and allowing ourselves to move through the emotions, as opposed to just storing and stuffing them in different parts of our body and having them kind of create problems, physical problems and other problems in different ways. So learning to do that and having the determination to stick with it, like you said, is our greatest asset in our healing journey. Nothing is truly going to be overnight. I mean, those examples are few and far between. They absolutely happen, and I believe that we're capable of them. But when we continually work at using heavier and heavier weights with our mental health and physical health and spiritual health, we will reap the benefits with it over time. But having that determination is our best asset in this regard.
Yeah, I think as human beings, we've lost a sense that we would have had, and it's this connection to spirituality. It's this connection to our brain, our body, the cosmos, nature around us. And obviously, most people live in like big cities with loads of lights. It's not so easy to be in nature all the time. But if 10,000 years ago, your norm was just nature. Your norm was the birds singing, and every night you would see 1 trillion stars up there, and you would be blown away. You'd be connected to something so much bigger than you. You wouldn't just be trapped in your head or your body. You'd just be connected. And I think that just through our cultural evolution, we've lost that. And I feel like we've spoke about it earlier in the show, that people's desire for a spiritual connection, for something outside of us, whether that's with other people or a community or something bigger. People are just want that, and they're striving for that right now. And I think it's only going to benefit people to be able to recognize that. And there's so many ways in which people can harness that need and develop it.
Yeah, we're desperate for it right now. I think it's evident everywhere you look. And there's just an intense craving to get back to who we really are.
It's just natural, right? It's just, it's a natural thing. And then if we look at the majority of people's lives, it's quite unnatural. Like we eat unnatural food, we sleep in unnatural environments, we have unnatural light surrounding us. A lot of what we do, and a lot of it's unavoidable. I've got 3 unnatural lights shining at me right now. But we have to do our very best to get back to the natural, whether that's within our diet, within the way that we have to naturally move our bodies in different ways to reap the benefits of that. And I think a lot of people kind of know what it is that they kind of should be doing. But when we're kind of trapped, whether that's in the thoughts of the past or the thoughts of the future, it can be difficult to step into the present moment and think about what it is that my body needs right now and actually do that. It can be very, very challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah. Especially if it's not something that we're familiar with or have been exposed to a lot. And when I'm thinking about emotions in particular, for example, like if you had an angry parent and you decided at a very young age that anger is destructive,
right?
And you decided on some level of who you are that I'm making a vow that I am not going to be an angry person. So you have essentially taken that out of your arsenal of who you are. There's a lot of problems that happen with doing something like that, and you have essentially cut off a vital emotion, something that gives you clues about some things that are unfair in life. That your anger will always be triggered because there is something unfair and it needs to be paid attention to. If you have made a vow that that's not something that you want to incorporate in your life because you've seen an extreme version of that, then you have robbed yourself of something really vital. So looking at the things that scare you is also a really important practice, because it can be really, really huge in your mind that anger is really a bad thing. And then when you take a look at it, you can see and you lean into it. You can see that it was bad in that circumstance. But there is an element of it that is healthy for me to incorporate back into my life and get back to who I really am, because denying a huge part of who I am is not necessarily the answer. It's bringing it back in a way that is more balanced.
Beautifully said. I couldn't agree more. And I think when you have a clear intention on something and you wrap that in elevated emotions, then amazing things can absolutely happen. Like, for some of the main reasons that I try to eat as best as I can, I try to move my body every day, and I try to generally be happy and playful, is because that's the type of people I want my kids to grow up into being. I don't want them to be angry or upset or stressed out. So I try and not be those things as well, to try to set that example. And if you're struggling for a clear intention or a goal, just look to your kids, I think. And, you can try and be that example for them, I guess. And, I want to be rolling around on the floor playing with my grandkids when I'm 90. And that's kind of like why I try and make good choices now, like 50 years before that. So there's always some good motivation out there, and children are a good source of that, I find.
Yeah, kids are the best. You model for them the life that they want to live, and then they'll do that behavior.
Yeah.
If you talk a great story and then you do something else, they can see the discrepancy in doing that kind of thing. Yeah, so you really have to model what you want them to do.
That's for sure. I want to ask you about your app, Soar with tapping.
Yes.
And I think it's designed to help people access the tools of tapping a lot more easily. So I'd love to know, like, what inspired the creation of the app, and how do you hope it impacts its users?
What inspired me was I had that crisis moment, and I started working with clients full time, but I felt that I wasn't reaching enough people, and I really want a lot of people to have access to this tool. And when I looked at what was available in form of an app out there, I saw I didn't see something that harnessed the full power of this tool that we were talking about earlier. So I saw a lot of tapping apps that were putting a Band-Aid over the problem, which, like I said, can be very helpful in a moment. There aren't many people that have like an hour to dedicate to tapping on the root cause of something every single day. So sometimes it's really helpful to have a Band-Aid, but I also wanted to give people the option and the instruction for how to tackle something like anxiety at its core, or depression, or addiction, or procrastination at its core, and give them like an order to do things in that is the fastest way to do it and the most effective way to do it, so that when somebody is depressed and they go to try to tap on something, they're not overwhelmed with 100, 200 different tapping scripts. They have a very specific place that they can go in the app that will make the biggest impact on what they're experiencing in that moment. So I wanted to give people a tool and the instruction for how to deal with some of these bigger things, because I really focused on foundational fears, what I call foundational fears, because those are usually at the root of every single issue that people struggle with. So I always instruct people, start with writing down your top 10 fears. And I don't just generally mean like fear of spiders or, fear of heights or something like that. What I'm talking about is like fear of not belonging, fear of not being worthy or deserving of love, fear of your physical body. If you've had like big physical problems in your life, there can be a real fear of this vessel that we just are moving around the world in. So I instruct people to do that first, and then all of the rest will follow. So I really just wanted to give people the tools to work through their own stuff, and an avenue that makes it easy and affordable to do that. Not everybody can afford a 90-minute session with me. So this is a great alternative for that.
Yeah, I think that the foundational piece on kind of anything when it comes to, I think, healing and change,
Hmm.
transformation, when people really want to take that on board seriously, I think, people, they sign up for the gym in January every year or so. Like, that's cool and that's great, but it's like the thing that really usually, and it's weird because it usually comes from like trauma or tragedy or something bad happening to you, to really kick you kind of into gear to look
Yeah.
at something that you really want to take with both hands and
Yeah.
use to help transform your body. And for us here at True Hope, when it comes to like foundational health, foundational nutrition, we find that so many people, once they're able to take care of the foundational requirements that their brain and their body need to create, that are the essential building blocks to produce the proteins, to produce the fats, the carbohydrates, to get into the cell and do its thing. Once
Hmm.
people are able to like take care of the foundations, like if you were to like build a house, you start with the foundations, right, for that strong house. People then are able to step into the kind of the next stage where they're able to really harness the new skill set that they're taking on board, or jump into the practices that they may want to do in it. But it all starts with those foundational pieces. If you've never golfed before, you've got to work on your grip, you've got to work on your stance, you've got to work on these foundational pieces, because if you don't do those things, you're not going to hit this golf ball. And
Right.
I'm just a golfer, so I just had to use that
I
little
totally
description there. But it's not, because I see my 4-year-old golf, and before a couple of little tweaks, just how to
Yeah.
stand, he can't hit the thing, and now he stands properly and he can hit it every time, so it's great. So
Yeah.
the foundational piece in anything is absolutely vital, and especially with a product like ours. Our flagship product here is called Empower Plus. It's a broad spectrum micronutrient formula, one of the most studied micronutrients on the planet. And the reason it works so well is because we chelate our minerals for 4 days. The industry standard is 4 hours. So you're actually able to get these building blocks, these foundational pieces, through your blood-brain barrier into your brain. You can start nutriting your brain very, very quickly.
Hmm.
And what that does for people on that foundational level, it gives them this spark, this new energy in which they're able to think about doing these other things that are so vital for their mental health and their physical health, whether that's going for a run or starting to do tapping or meditation, whatever that might be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's that kickstart that a lot of people like might need, especially after, in some cases, decades of being on and off different medications, trying all the different therapies to kind of get their PTSD or their anxiety or their depression uh, under control. But when they're actually able to provide their brain, it's again, like, I guess it's kind of putting their body in the present moment by providing it nutrition, so it's not in this constant state of stress, this constant state of lack and deficiency. And if you're able to provide it what it needs, it's going to replenish you, it's going to heal you, it's going to do all these things, and then you're able to take the next steps to be
Yes.
able to develop. And I'm sure that when people come onto your app and they learn about tapping and they learn the basics, and then they begin to build that routine and they turn it into a practice that ends up being something they do every day that they really look forward to, that is supplementing their spiritual health. Um that's that's beautiful, because that's what we want to do. We want to build, because people for many, many years and decades, sometimes they've been kind of destroying those positive habits that we kind of really need.
Yeah, that's a really great illustration. I'm a huge fan of a comprehensive approach to healing, and how something like your supplements and tapping could work so well together. Maybe the supplements
Mhm.
trigger a better feeling and a willingness to um, take better care of yourself and do some more tapping. And sometimes tapping can make you want to take care of your body better. And so all of these things work together so well. And when you use them together, then your healing is that much faster, right? With tapping in particular, it can be really, really fast. I healed myself of probably 2 decades of lower back pain within like 2 hours of tapping. And I had
Amazing.
chronic UTIs from the age of 2 years old. And when I discovered what the root cause of that was, I healed myself from being having to take medication practically daily. And I still get UTIs sometimes, but I know exactly what to tap on, and then I can make it go away really, really fast when I do. So there's benefits to all of these different modalities. And when we can use them together, they can even heighten the effect of all of them.
Beautiful.
So I love a comprehensive approach.
Yeah, it has to be done like that. Like, I think that, you know, we're lucky to have some amazing practitioners come onto the show that talk about their specialty, but they've all come into a position where they recognize that this is, you know, it's not this one thing that's going to fix everything for you. It just doesn't work like that's the allopathic, you know, pill for an ill mentality.
Yes.
And that's just not how our biology works. It's not how our spiritual body works. This is way more complex than that. We have to fuel it and feed it from this holistic, comprehensive standpoint. So I'm glad that you brought that up. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I think for somebody listening right now, who is feeling overwhelmed, feeling kind of stuck or emotionally drained, what do you think one simple tapping exercise or maybe even nutritional shift that they could try today to start feeling like a little bit more empowered?
Well, I mean, there are many tapping scripts on the app that somebody could do. There's 10-minute tapping scripts or 20-minute tapping scripts. But I think just the most effective thing is to lean in to the uncomfortable feelings that you're feeling. Studies have shown that it takes literally about 90 seconds of feeling and emotion for it to start dissipating. So that's really what the app is designed to do. It's designed to help you lean into uncomfortable emotions and tell your body through the tapping that it's okay to feel safe and calm about having this emotion. And I I think one of the main things that people will often feel is counterintuitive about tapping is that it will help you acknowledge and honor the negative emotions. I don't think that there are any negative emotions, but people have not great relationships with some of the more uncomfortable ones.
Yeah, they're just emotions at the end of the day. I
They're
get
just
what you mean.
emotions at the end
Yeah.
of the day. So leaning into them is what the app is designed to do. So it might feel counterintuitive that for somebody that goes to the app, they want to feel better for them to be repeating me saying things that are hard, like I feel like I'm not worthy or deserving, and it feels like nobody loves me or something, whatever along those lines. But it's acknowledging it and honoring it over and over again, giving it its day in court that allows it to be released from our body. So sometimes leaning into the things that feel hard and moving through them is the actual answer, as opposed to skirting around it and just placing positivity on top of something that doesn't feel good. Sometimes it's actually uncovering those things that makes them disappear.
I love it. I'm going to download the app for sure and give it a go. And I think my 6-year-old son would really enjoy doing something like that as well.
Oh, kids are so responsive to tapping. They don't have nearly the amount of years of evidence for how unworthy we are than adults do. So they're so much more receptive to it.
Yeah, and I bet just even the practice of doing it, like it'd be a fun, novel thing for them to try and do, rather than for a lot of adults are probably like, you know, I don't want to sit there
Yeah.
and tap myself. What am I
And
doing here?
yeah, fun little tip. When you're working with kids, try and use their words, what they would say, not necessarily what an adult would say. And if you do it at bedtime, it will make them very sleepy and it will make them have a good night's sleep. I do it with my daughter all the time at night.
All right. I'm going to try that tonight. Usually it's been Harry Potter that's been putting my oldest to sleep these days. So I'm going to try some tapping as well, mix it up.
Yeah, yeah. Talk about whatever was involved in their day, any hard things that came up. Just have them talk through it and tap on their little spots. The app will show you, it'll has a diagram that shows you what the tapping spots are. And if you wanted to use a script, it has like a visual representation, but then the audio will also prompt you for the different spots to
Amazing.
tap on.
Yeah.
And I want to tell your listeners that they can go to soarwithtapping.com podcast-special, and they can find a code there that they can input into the app to get 50% off of their first annual subscription.
I just want to make sure I get that right. soarwithtapping.com
/podcast-special.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I can see that there. 50% off. That's awesome. Very cool. I'll make sure that's in the link with your website and everything. Is there anywhere else you think people should go to get more info, or is the website the best place to go?
Website is the best place, but I'm also on, TikTok and Instagram. I usually do like daily little tapping things to help people through their day, stuff like that. Yeah,
that's what we need. That's great. I think the more solutions in which we can help people get into the present moment and help through the traumas that people have experienced, the better. And I think it's great that we're able to utilize things like TikTok and have these long form conversations where people can become a little bit more maybe motivated and inspired and get solutions to these things, because there's not a whole lot of solutions for some of the things that we've talked about coming from the like conventional model. Unfortunately, it should be a first line in many cases for a lot of people. It should be government subsidized and it should be spread out there. This app should be free and out there for everybody to be able to try, because if we could reduce stress and anxiety levels for everybody, we would be living in a much more prosperous place, that's for sure. But that's another political conversation that we don't have time for today. Amy, thank you so much for coming on the show. I learned so much about your practice and what you're going to do. I am not kidding when I say I'm going to be going on to your website and downloading this app and giving this a try today. So I encourage other people to do that as well. And I will make sure that all of the links necessary to do that, including that podcast special discount, is available for people as well. And I'm hoping people provide some feedback on their experience.
Thank you so much for having me, Simon. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Awesome, Amy. Thank you very much. Okay, well, that's it for this episode of Truehope Cast, the official podcast of Truehope Canada. We will be back with you again next week. You can leave us a review on iTunes and a star review on Spotify if you fancy doing that. But that is it for this week. We'll see you soon.